for me is a day where I can sleep in a bit, get up, have a nice pot of tea, read morning prayer, have my devotions, read the New York Times, Newsday, and then go to my cookbooks and flip through the cookbooks and find a new recipe to try. Going to the store, getting the ingredients, and preparing a fabulous dinner at night. I love to cook. I love to try new recipes. I even love to try new recipes when company comes over, too, which can be a little dangerous, but I'm a good cook, so I'm not too worried about that. And the trick, whenever you've tried a new recipe, is you have to read it through completely. Not just the ingredients, but the directions about how things are supposed to be. Now, I'm one of these cooks with the new recipes, and I do what the chefs recommend. I have mise en place, everything in its place. I chop everything ahead of time. I have my little bowls out. I do it all, try to do it right. And 9 times out of 10, the recipe turns out better than I ever expected. But there's always that 10% of the time where well, I don't really blame the recipe. It could have been a bad recipe. But what happens is I just didn't follow the directions as it was supposed to be. I missed a step. I screwed up. And it can either be too salty, or burnt, or just missing that right ingredient that would have made it the perfect dish. It's amazing how often that I don't follow the recipe as is. Wouldn't life be wonderful if we were just a recipe? If we had the directions before us about what we were supposed to be doing in order to live our lives to the glory of God and for the betterment of our fellow human? I mean, how wonderful would life be for all of us if we simply followed that so-called recipe? If such a recipe exists. You know, in the Hebrew Scripture in the Old Testament, God, through Moses and the people of Israel, tried to put together a recipe for life, the laws of Moses, the 10 Commandments. And prophets came to and fro to the people of Israel and tried to point them in the right direction of following God. But they screwed up. They screwed up a lot. Just as you and I screw up. We know what we're supposed to do, but we want to think, well, I don't need that part of the recipe. Or maybe I can just skip that and add something else in. God, though, loved all of us so much that God then sent another prophet, John the Baptist, Jesus' cousin, to remind the people of Israel and to remind us, too, that we're getting it wrong. That we weren't following what God wanted us to do. John the Baptist preached about preparing our life for the coming of the Christ child. To prepare the way, to make straight the paths, to follow what Christ calls us to do. And he calls us to the same thing today. You know, that recipe of life isn't that difficult. Jesus made it quite clear what we're supposed to do in order to live our lives in God. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, all your soul, all your strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. Forgive so you can be forgiven. This isn't rocket science. But how often do we screw it up? How often do we put ourselves first before God, before our fellow human being? How often don't we love others? How often don't we love ourselves? We don't do these things because we're missing that recipe that God put before us. We can blame a lot of folks. We can blame stress. We can blame work. We can blame addictions. We can put all the blame on everyone else. But the fact is, when we screw up, it's because of our own fault. We're getting in the way. We're missing the point. We're not reading the directions. We're missing coming to church. We're missing saying our prayers. We're missing forgiving. We're missing caring. But the nice thing about when we don't follow the recipes is we can always take what we made. We can always give it to the dog, if the dog would eat it. Put it in the trash, and start again. The good news, my sisters and my brothers, is that Christ gives us that chance to make our lives on a straight path with Him. To go back to the basics. To go back to the core recipes of loving and caring and serving. My friends, it's Advent. We have 2 weeks and a day before Christmas Eve. Don't have a panic attack. We have 2 weeks and a day to prepare ourselves for celebrating the birth of the Christ child and to prepare ourselves for the day when Christ will come again. When He will ask all of us, did you follow the recipe that He put before us or not? Amen.